Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thanks to UDC for organizing this. And my name is David Alpert. I am here to give a perspective on this issue from the point of view of riders. And I represent riders in two ways. One is I'm the DC Vice Chair of the Metro Riders Advisory Council. The Riders Advisory Council, or RAC, is a group of 21 riders from DC, Maryland, and Virginia who are chosen by the board of directors of Metro to provide input to them on different issues. And we meet, we hear presentations about things, and we discuss them, and we give recommendations. In addition, I run a website called Greater Washington, which is a blog about transportation and urban planning issues. Through that, I also hear from many residents of the region, discuss issues, and so forth. This issue of bag searches is very troubling to me and to many riders. Almost everyone that we've heard from is very concerned about this, is very upset to have heard that this happened. Originally, it was announced in December during the board meeting of Metro board meeting. That was the last meeting before the holiday break. A bunch of members were leaving. They were going off the board, and they simply announced this, and it sort of went by without a whole lot of attention. Just to clarify when I keep talking about the Metro Board and the Riders Advisory Council, there are two groups. There is a board of directors of Metro. Metro is an interstate compact. It has DC, Maryland, and Virginia. They came together to agree to build this transit system. And they have members who are appointed by each jurisdiction to actually make decisions for Metro. Then there's the Riders Advisory Council, which essentially advises that group, the board. So there was a huge amount of rider dismay, discussion. I wrote things about it on the blog. There were people talking on Twitter about how much they hated this. They came up with a hashtag on Twitter called Metro Opens Bags, which was a little bit of a riff on the Metro slogan, Metro Opens Doors. And then the Riders Advisory Council decided we should have a public forum about this issue because the Metro Board had essentially just let it sail by and not taken any action to say, wait a minute, we should talk about whether you're going to do this. The last time 3 years ago you said you wanted to do this, we had problems with it, don't just go ahead and do it right now. But they kind of slipped it in. So we had a forum in early January, over 50 people testified, and all but one were opposed to the bag search program. We then passed a resolution from the Riders Advisory Council saying we think the board should not go ahead with this bag search program, should halt the program. Unfortunately, they did not do so. But we were able to get a lot of rider feedback, and we were able to also find out some really interesting things from the police about this program and about their thinking about the program. First of all, for riders, what is it that upsets riders? A lot of everyone here, all the panelists, have given a lot of really persuasive academic, political, practical arguments why this is a bad program, and people cited many of those in their testimony. But overall, I think what it really is something that was articulated very well by Dr. Gridlock from the Washington Post, who's here in the audience, who said, for a lot of riders, I don't necessarily know why this program is wrong specifically, I just know it's wrong. Or paraphrasing it. So that people simply reacted that this doesn't seem like something that is right. It doesn't seem reasonable. I don't know about exactly what the jurisprudence is on the Fourth Amendment or what the state of opinions in law enforcement is. This just seems wrong. And that was very clear from what riders had to say. Another thing that riders really reacted to was, why can't the police be using their resources in other ways? Because there have been attacks on the Metro, not terrorism related, just kids getting into trouble, hurting people, that needs to be stopped. That's much more of a clear threat than this vague terrorist threat, which, as the police admitted in our meetings, doesn't have any specific, credible, immediate threat whatsoever. So why couldn't, and the police also made it very clear that yes, it is a matter of resources. They got a grant from the Department of Homeland Security, and therefore they're going to do this. And they're doing a whole number of different programs simply because they have some money and the money is available. But we asked, and never got a satisfactory answer, why don't you do some of the other things that you can do under the grant that might put the police in a position to stop some of these things? These incidents have been happening on the platforms, not out in the mezzanines. Why don't you have some officers patrolling the platforms looking for terrorists, and while they're looking for terrorists, if some kids are beating someone up, it's okay for the police to stop that person from, getting beat up while they're in the process of being alert for terrorists. So they could satisfy the grant without, in ways that are also constructive for what riders need. But the response was simply that, well, we have to do as many different things as possible just because we should do a lot of things. And that was very much not persuasive. They said it in a little bit more of a little bit less flippant way, but that was still very much the way it came across, and it was essentially what they were saying. We're just going to do different things because we think that it's good to do them. And as far as the issue that Mr. Harper was saying about assessing the risks, look at all those factors that go into the risks. What's the danger? What's the likelihood that something happens? What's the consequence, and so forth. This is a problem that Metro generally has. They're actually bad at assessing this risk when it comes to safety as well. Whether trains are likely to hit other trains or buses are likely to get into crashes. They're actually doing a very poor job of making those same types of judgments about, is repairing this particular thing versus repairing that thing going to lead to more safety versus just let's do everything for safety because of this vague belief that safety is important, so we should sort of do everything for it. The police also, the Metro police officers also definitely showed an attitude that any security measure was a good idea regardless of its impact on civil liberties, regardless of its specific effectiveness, or the way riders react to it. They were completely baffled at one person's suggestion, one member of the Riders Advisory Council, that maybe it would be a good idea for the police to talk to some people from the ACLU, or talk to some riders, talk to some other experts, and have a dialogue about what they're planning on doing and see how to maybe tailor a program to maximize both liberty and rider happiness and security. They cited statistics that almost everyone who's gone through the stations had no problem with the bag searches, essentially to justify that, well, clearly riders are fine with it because, not that many people have objected. But the riders' view, but the feedback that we got was very strongly the other way. And the riders' view matters a great deal because for Metro in particular, they need public support. Most government agencies need public support, but Metro really needs public support because its public perception is at something of a low given some of its other safety problems. And it constantly needs money that comes from the public because the fares don't pay for the cost of running service, which is the case with all transportation systems. So, unfortunately, the board of directors decided not to go forward in some very disappointing debates. One member, who's now not on the board anymore, Peter Benjamin from Maryland, gave a long speech about how he was an ACLU member and he cared a great deal about civil liberties and he thought that it was vitally important that we protect them, but that he wasn't going to. He, again, not quite so flippantly, but basically said, I don't remember exactly what he said. He said, well, I believe very much in that civil liberties are important, but I also have to protect the riders, so, whatever. Again, not quite so flippantly, but that was the way it came across. Other members simply didn't believe that there was any role for civil liberties whatsoever, that another member, Mort Downey, a federal government appointee, said there's no more important issue in civil society than this security, which I strongly disagree with. So that's where we're at. Unfortunately, the board has been so far unwilling to take much action, but my hope is that first of all, the strength of the opposition will make them decide to give much more scrutiny to any more programs, and hopefully we can also persuade many of the members, some of whom continue to turn over, that they should take another look at this issue.
As we give these wonderful panelists a round of applause, I'm going to invite our dean to come up and just say a few words. But first, I'd like to